Huh? Huh?
Hi, Deepanshi. Welcome to Many Questions, the show where we ask each guest many questions about mental health and mental health research. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, just busy with assignments in uni, but otherwise I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm just hoping that the construction behind my house doesn't interrupt this episode, but I'm doing very well. You were diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder and generalized anxiety disorder. When did you first realize that you might have had those conditions?
Well, I got diagnosed with a beautiful cocktail of disorders actually. It was OCD, GAD, and then ADHD, PTSD, and I also had depressive tendencies at the time. I think I started noticing it when I just couldn't sleep. And I was really struggling to sleep since the age of 12, 13, but it became progressively worse. And it got to a point where I couldn't even sleep at night without music on, or
Mm.
I needed like an alarm next to my bed just in case something happened in the middle of the night and I needed to call my parents. And so it started really young for me, but I think when the little whispers in my head started following me during the day as well, that's when I realized that actually I can't continue like this. Is there something wrong with me, or what is happening? Why am I does everyone go through this? And I used to sleep at 5, 6 a.m. when or I could hear my parents waking up. That's when I felt, oh, it's safe enough to sleep now. There's someone around to look out for me. So that's when I actually used to rest, so yeah, it really affected my day to day. And then finally, I thought, you know what, I have to say something, because even before that, I don't think I talked openly about it to my parents,
Yeah.
because my parents are both doctors. I come from a family of six doctors, so I was always surrounded by professionals. But still, I felt, because that stigma in me was so deeply ingrained, because I could hear it, how other people describe people around me if they're a little bit different, or they react to things differently. They think, oh, they're crazy, or they're weak, or there's something wrong with her, or she needs help. Or even though it wasn't directly said to me, because I heard it around me in society, I felt, oh, if I speak up about what I'm going through, people will judge me the same way. And so I never even gave that chance to my parents. And then when I finally spoke up about it, they were so different from what I thought. They were so supportive. Even if they didn't understand the complexity of what I was trying to say, they were willing to be open and to hear me and to say, "Okay, how can we help you? What do you need right now?" And that meant so, so much to me. And so, yeah, I think sometimes we think that someone will react a certain way, and then we actually stop ourselves from taking that first step to talk.
Hmm.
But when we take it, take that leap of faith, it sometimes actually really does work out and it's for the best. So yeah, I think that's when it, got really real for me after that
Yeah.
diagnosis. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you had a support network around you. That's amazing. I guess a lot of people don't really have that,
Yeah.
yeah, around them. I guess nowadays it's starting to get a little bit better when it comes to, I guess, people being more open and talking about like the different issues that they're going through. But I can just remember like 10, 15 years ago, if someone were to say that, I'm depressed. It's just, well, just, you're just sad. Just do something that makes you feel happy. It's
Yeah.
it's like it's a simple fix. It's a switch. You just flip it on and off,
Mhm.
and yeah, it's really frustrating. But I'm glad that things were able to turn around for you.
Yeah, no, I agree that I don't think that for everyone that's the case. And I think I was actually quite lucky to have listening ears and someone who was so supportive, for sure. And you're right, a lot has changed in the last few years, and that's a good sign that
Yeah,
people are at least open to hearing about it. Yeah.
yeah, definitely, definitely. This is why shows like this exist, just so
Yeah.
more people feel more comfortable. Because you never know, someone might be watching this or listening to this, and go, actually, that reminds me of me. Maybe I should get checked out, and then
Mhm.
eventually they get a diagnosis.
Yeah.
So, what is it like living with so many different mental health conditions?
I think I feel quite differently about it now, but when I was at rock bottom, it was like living in a horror movie. I felt like, for me specifically, my OCD and my general anxiety was very much around danger and someone's going to harm me,
Mhm.
or someone's going to someone's following me, or I'll be attacked any second, or I would get, thoughts of harm, of like harming other people, harming myself. And it's not something I can talk openly about because I felt like, there was this deep fear of being judged by people. There was this fear of the shame or guilt that, oh, why am I thinking these things? Or am I a bad person? Am I an evil person? Am I like a murderer or something? I don't
Mhm.
know what is this? Like, why am I having these thoughts? And I was just so paranoid all the time, and I felt like I was walking on eggshells. And it became even worse when, obviously, during the day I would have to skip trains or walk on a different route because I felt something bad was going to happen if I took a specific train, or I would be late to things because I was just obsessing over something for a time, and then I would have panic attacks out of nowhere. I remember I missed an interview because I had a panic attack right before going in, and then I didn't attend because my face was all red and puffy and I didn't know what to say to them, or so I thought of just canceling the interview and just saying, "Sorry, I don't think I can do this job." And because that I found that was easier for me to do than to explain that, "Oh, I'm sorry, I just had a panic attack." And it was easier for me to just say, "Sorry, I can't do
Yeah.
this." And yeah, so it did have a huge impact on my life and how I treat life, how I react to people. So it can be really scary when you're in the middle of it. It can be really, really scary. Yeah.
I'm really sorry. You had to, I guess, live through all of that. At what age would you say it started?
I would have to say it was around the time I moved to this country, and
Mhm.
because at that time I was very young, it was a very abrupt move, and I had to leave a lot of my family behind, and like my grandparents and my cousins and friends and the life I knew. And now suddenly I'm in a new unknown place, and people look at me differently because I look different, I sound different. I had a very fresh Indian accent at the time, and people in school would be staring at me as I'm the new girl, and they couldn't entirely understand me. And I guess just having eyes on me made me really, really conscious, really self-conscious, and then me seeking validation from people, wanting to fit in. And I think that's when it really, really started, the thoughts that, oh, people are watching me, I'm being watched. And then somehow it manifested into what is now, I guess, my OCD and my general anxiety that, oh, I'm being watched and I need to, be careful or be cautious all the time. So yeah, I guess I would say it really started around that time, but it became progressively worse over the years.
I guess because for a lot of people, mental health conditions start when in childhood, especially
Mhm.
when they're so young. So it's troubling to feel that there's so many children that experience so many different mental health conditions, and for years go without being, I guess, even looked at, diagnosed. Some parents may feel that, oh, I don't want my child to be labeled
Mm.
X, Y, Z, so I'm not going to get them the help that they truly need.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what would you say is the main misconceptions of, I guess, OCD and GAD?
I guess it's kind of like a stereotype that people think that OCD is just about wanting things to be perfect, or be really meticulous about cleanliness and your surroundings, and or it has to be a certain way. And yes, to some extent, I've experienced that personally. That yes, I am a perfectionist and I need things in a certain way. Not that much about cleanliness. I cannot show you my room right now. It is very messy.
There's a
Um,
reason why my thing is blurred.
I was like, "No, it's okay. I'll embrace my messiness today." But no, it was, yeah, I think that's kind of like a stereotypical way of thinking, about OCD. For me personally, it was very much around harm and, the random thoughts of, you know, harming people or harming myself or being harmed by some mysterious creature following me around, or being watched. So it can be very, very different. And I know other people who I've spoken to, and they have other types of OCD very different from mine. So I think it just depends on person to person, and it can't just be put in a box where, okay, this is so you have OCD, so this is all you have, like you have these thoughts, because it's so unique to every individual.
Because last year I spoke to an author, Lily Bailey, who is a mental health campaigner and also OCD campaigner.
Mhm.
And she spoke about the intrusive thoughts that she would get with her OCD, which is something I never realized. I guess the misconception, I guess, yeah, everything is what people say is, oh, I'm tidy, so I've got a little bit of OCD and stuff like that. It's I guess just makes it seem like it's a throwaway condition, which when it is truly something very serious.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you have the intrusive thoughts, but then you also have the compulsive behavior that follows that most of the time. So if you don't follow this thought that, your mind is throwing at you, then you have this deep fear that, oh, something bad's going to happen if I don't do what my mind's telling me right now. Because I remember even with the fear of being watched, I would turn around, like, in my bed several times a night, just making sure no one's behind me, or I would check the door a couple times, or I would make sure that the window is completely shut, the curtains are completely drawn, so I can't see any shadows lurking behind it, and I had to continuously check that, and my mind was telling me, make sure there's nothing there, and just check one more time, and if I didn't do that, I would just have this overwhelming sense of anxiety, and it took me a very long time to realize that actually what happens after I come, to the other side of that peak of anxiety. But before, I didn't even know I could do that. I just felt like, oh, I have to give in to
Yeah.
stop feeling this way.
Did you find it an issue differentiating between what was an intrusive thought and your actual thoughts and feelings about a situation? So I guess, for example, if you were to walk down a dark street,
Mm.
could you tell if it's a case of I feel fearful because it is a dark road, or it's the intrusive thoughts?
That is a really good question, because I think they're so interlinked. They're so interlinked, and I would really struggle to figure out what is my inner critic, for example, and my intrusive thoughts. And for me personally, it's worked to actually put them together. I don't think any thoughts are facts, really. Even my own thoughts that I believe are my own, I don't think they're facts. So that's just my opinion. That's just what what has manifested in me through values and things I've learned from around me. But yeah, I think for me personally, it helped to just see all thoughts that were unhelpful as one, whether it was my OCD or my inner critic, or because there are so many parts within us, like I've kind of learned to accept all of them, even the parts I don't like, which took me a long time. But yeah, I agree. It's very, very difficult to differentiate between the two.
So I guess with that, how could someone support a loved one or a friend or family member with GAD or OCD?
I think I personally needed a lot of reassurance, or just people around me who made me feel safe. I think safety is the key aspect of it. Most of the time, if someone has OCD, they feel like they're in danger of some kind. They feel, they're unsafe. So just making them feel safe. That could be as simple as just asking them once in a while, what do you need? Or it's easy to say, don't worry, but actually,
Yeah.
it's not that easy to apply it in your life. If you imagine like having intrusive thoughts in your head that just don't go away, and your mind is telling you you have to do this behavior to get rid of this thought, otherwise something really bad is going to happen, like literally someone is going to die, then that is not something you can just run away from. It's just screaming in your head. You can't run away from yourself. So, the urge is so strong that sometimes the person can have, really deep shame and guilt, and the feeling of not having any power in them. So, yeah, I think safety is a big part of it. But on the other hand, I personally don't want to be coddled either. Like,
Oh yeah.
when if someone who's so cautious around me and is, so scared to offend me, or, to make me feel uncomfortable in some way, that they don't even treat me as a normal person anymore, as if I'm broken in some way, or I need to be treated like, someone really fragile. I personally don't appreciate that, and I might see the world slightly differently from some people, but everyone has their own struggles, and I would just appreciate basic respect for that, and I hope that, other people who have OCD and GD kind of resonate with that as well, that, that sense of safety, but also not to be treated special in some way.
Yeah, I guess it just goes back to what you're saying about listening. It's all like listening to what that person is saying, how to support them. Because I guess if you don't, then you're that whole thing of like treating somebody with like kid gloves
Mhm.
because you feel like, oh no, they have to. It's not treating them like a person. They want to be treated, just like everybody else.
Exactly that, I have these struggles, but someone else different to me might have their own struggles, and it doesn't mean that they don't deserve the same respect as me, but it also means that they might have different needs to me. So I just want to acknowledge that they have different needs, but we're all trying to just figure ourselves out and survive in this world. So we all deserve the same basic respect. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. We're all a work in progress.
absolutely. Yeah.
Well, Deepanshi, thank you so much for this episode, for sitting down with me. And I'm sure that somebody outside will get some information that will hopefully change their life.
No, thank you so much for having me and giving me a space to share my thoughts and experiences as well. I appreciate it.
So, how can people reach you if they want to, I guess?
We're on Instagram as Rain on London, and we have our website as well, rainonme.org. And we want to offer a safe space to anyone who's looking for a listening ear or a community. So feel free to reach out.
Well, thank you so much, and I hope you have an amazing day.
You too. Thank you. Thank you so much.